The Mexican Revolution was a complex social struggle that took place during the early 20th century. It was a turbulent period of time when urban and rural workers, students and teachers, farmers and peasants, women and indigenous people were fighting for their basic rights and freedoms against abusive government.
These societies were fighting to save their way of life, basically, their survival. These are communities that are being encroached upon by modern capitalist groups, corporations, oil companies, private landowners from the United States and Mexico. They had strong connections to the land, and those were being severed by encroaching on their territories, pushing them out of the way, making them work under horrendous conditions, really giving no quarter to people who had lived on this land for eons.
We were thrilled when the Maxwell Museum of Anthropology at UNM approached the new Department of Chicana and Chicano Studies to support the exhibit Mexico at the Hour of Combat.
The Sabina Osuna exhibit comes from a collection of photographs from the University of California, Riverside. And what we did here at this museum is we contextualized them a little bit more specifically here in New Mexico, and also in terms of contemporary politics.
We helped shape the exhibit, we planned a symposium to kick off the exhibit, and we decided to interview faculty and students whose families' lives had intersected with the Mexican Revolution.
My connection to the Mexican Revolution was really through my father. About 1910 or so, he traveled and joined the forces of Pancho Villa. Pancho Villa trained him to shoot, and he became one of the Dorados of Pancho Villa. The Dorados were the personal guard of Villa, the most trusted group. In 1911, when Villa with Pascual Orozco took over Ciudad Juárez, he was assigned to be in El Paso, up on top of the mountain, to make sure that no American troops were coming to interfere. And I guess he had been trained very well by Villa. Later on, he joined the US Army and went to France as a sharpshooter. When I came to see the exhibit, I saw the pictures, especially the pictures of the soldiers that were with Pancho. It really made me feel very emotional, because that's something in which my father had been involved when he was a young boy.
The Mexican Revolution also influenced the popular culture as expressed in music and folklore. Numerous corridos were penned to commemorate the triumphs and tragedies of the Mexican Revolution, and also the everyday experiences of people who were caught up in this civil war.
En esa puerta del cuartel está enterrada una mujer, valiente como no hubo dos, su patria supo defender. Cada año se mira llegar a un hombre que le va a rezar, a un general de división que no se puede consolar. Mi soldadita le grita, mi soldadita, porque me fuiste.
1913 is when the Mexican Revolution takes off. And you have these people that are, at first, kind of minor figures, Villa, Zapata, Obregón, Carranza. They kind of become these world figures, and the revolution takes off, and it takes on a different flavor. Peasants and campesinos and laborers take on an important role, basically doing away with the old Mexican state.
My grandfather was a gringo, but he had been in Mexico for about 30 years working in the mines. And my grandmother was born in Mexico in Sinaloa. It was at a quinceañera that she met my grandfather. Around 1914, it got very unstable, and the British sent a train in the middle of the night to pick up all the people working in the mine. And my grandmother, all she had with her was, they had the clothes on their back, and they had this Our Lady of Guadalupe with them, and some powdered milk. So when they got to New Orleans, my grandmother took all the kids and she put her arm around them and she said, you know, losing everything was the best thing that ever happened to our family. Now we know what's important. It's our education, our family, and our faith. So thank God for nothing was our family motto. But my aunt ended up taking care of one of Pancho Villa's, the women who rode with him. Her name was Mariano Gomez Gutierrez. The woman was ill, so my aunt nursed her back to health and then helped her get back to Mexico so she could be with her family at the end. She was the treasurer of Pancho Villa's war effort. She was probably one of the most educated people in his whole group. Pancho Villa used to introduce her as La Profesora. They ended up getting in touch with Luz Villa. That was Pancho Villa's first wife. And Luz Villa had arranged with the Lions Club of Chihuahua that when they got her over there, they would take care of her hospital bills so she could die with her family. And there was some kind of a sense of coming full circle, right? So we had to leave because of Villa, and then we take care of his friend at the end.
My grandfather, Walter Cruzan Mitchell, lived in Detroit, Michigan back in the early 1900s. In 1916, Pancho Villa came across the border and attacked the border town of Columbus, New Mexico. In response, President Wilson signed into law the National Security Act. My grandfather's unit was one of the first ones mobilized in 1916. This picture here on the bottom is a picture of my grandfather's unit, the 31st Michigan Infantry Regiment, in their camp down near the southeastern corner of El Paso. I didn't know that my family had any connection to the Mexican Revolution until a few weeks ago when I was helping my daughter with a genealogy assignment for school. My grandfather, 100 years ago, was on the border, and he would have probably never guessed that his grandson would be living less than 4 hours away from where he was encamped. And he probably would have never guessed that his great-granddaughter would be Mexican-American. I find it interesting just to have this story, to complete this part of my life that I don't really know about, and to be able to tell my daughter, who's Mexican-American, who has a connection to both countries, about the history of her family.
My mother used the stories passed through her father to teach us values and beliefs about life. She taught us not to hoard food or land or resources, that no one should follow abusive authority, whether in the church or in government. And very importantly, she taught us that one finds true dignity in life by helping others. The stories that she shared with us about people fighting for their freedom profoundly affected her life, the lives of her children, and her grandchildren.
Our family had no hard feelings about Pancho Villa. The sad thing, I think, for our family was that this didn't really result in the kind of land redistribution that had been asked for in the beginning of the revolution.
I think the Mexican Revolution was necessary. The simple fact that, and from my research, there were so many American interests going in, exploiting natural resources, exploiting the people, that at some point they had to take back their country.
The Mexican Revolution is about hope. It's about a society that is evolving that in a constructive way. These are societies where people actually feel that they can take part in changing or have agency in their communities, in their nation, and be a part of improving the situation. That you know, the ideals that they established in their original constitutions or that they promoted, let's say, in the 1917 Constitution, are worth fighting for.